I wish that I could fly into the sky so very high, just like an ornithopter. I fly above the trees, over the seas, there are no trees. And there are no seas. Oh, I wanna get duned. I wanna get duned. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanna get duned. I wanna get fucking duned. Yeah, yeah. Yeah! Hey, gamers. Welcome to episode 26 of Cinema Curse. Tonight, we've all been duned. We've all had a proper duning, and we're here to talk about it. The Denis Villeneuve's second part of his epic adaptation of Frank Herbert's sci-fi masterpiece. It started over again. I didn't mean my song to start over. I want to say apologies to Lenny Kravitz, and thanks to the karaoke YouTube channel that I'm not going to name for providing that. I am your wicked God Emperor, Connor Lloyd Crews. And the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen of talking about movies, Edwin Gonez, couldn't be here today. He got he's taking one of those big sludge baths, and he's just too comfortable to get out of it.
Yeah.
But actually joining us, we've got.
What's up, guys? It's Brian.
And.
Hey, how's it going? It's Scott. Good to see you guys.
And.
I'm Paul.
It's Paul. It's Madeeb.
Paul Trace is here.
Paul.
Madeeb. Got a little bit. I think my my voice is going away, so we'll see how this episode goes. But it's been 119 days since the strike ended. The AMPTP still sucks. And yeah, it's time to Dune it and talk about Dune. Let me change
Dune it again. Dune it again.
Change my background. They always mixes up where I put my stuff. Here we go.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
I thought that was
That's Christopher Walken. He's doing the
thing.
Dance.
Yeah. Why don't Paul? Why don't you? I'm just picking on you. I'm calling on you like I'm a teacher in a classroom. Paul,
That's fine.
Can you tell us what's Dune Part 2 all about?
Dune Part 2 is the sequel to Dune, which was a movie that came out a couple years previously. Well, Dune Part 2 picks up after, I guess, Paul. I'm Paul, but this is another Paul.
This is
Main character of the Dune series. Sort of ingratiates himself with the Fremen, which are like the desert community.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of it is about his rise from outsider to sort of leader of sorts, and sort of trying to take, I don't know if revenge is the right word, but he wants to sort of get at the Harkonnens who destroyed his family and whatever.
And the Emperor.
And the Emperor.
It's a story of all of these different factions, all with kind of their own agendas and degrees of how much they're working with each other. And yeah, the core of this one is really Dune. I almost called the character Dune. Paul wrestling with the fact that he knows that he could become like the most powerful person. He could become this like hero, this prophesied hero. But if he does so, there's a lot of bad things that could also happen. Which, to be fair, is just, if people know Dune, that's kind of the story of Dune, especially in the book. To the degree that apparently I was reading this earlier, that a big reason Frank Herbert wrote Dune Messiah is because he didn't think people got the first Dune. He was like, no, you guys like Paul too much. And so he wrote Dune Messiah.
And I can see that, having read just the first book of like, it doesn't like necessarily play the way like knowing what happens in Messiah play, like, oh wow, like, which is I think true of this movie too.
Yeah.
Like I think you'll be shocked for the next one, but we're gonna.
No, I do.
He's Messiah, but it's all planted. It's all artificial.
Yeah. Him being a Messiah is a plant of this group, the Bene Gesserit, these space witch nuns who have been sort of mingling behind the scenes for centuries. And what Paul is doing is he's sort of achieving these prophecies that the Fremen have, but these are things that really the Bene Gesserit had planted in for decades, for centuries beforehand. And so and his mother is a Bene Gesserit, and he's sort of being pushed towards it. I do think it does feel a little bit, and I haven't read all of the first Dune yet, I just started it. It does feel a little bit like these movies are incorporating some thematic stuff from Messiah backwards a little bit.
Very much so. Having especially this movie. Like this movie is made and structured in a way that knows what's going to happen in Messiah, whereas the book was written, and that's what I mean by like when you read the book and him having to write like, no, this is what I was going for, this is what I meant, because it doesn't necessarily like he's working to happen, and like the way it ends, you think like, well, yeah, hopefully it doesn't, and like the next one is him saying like, no, that wasn't, you were not supposed to say hopefully it doesn't. I'm telling you, this is what happens when this sort of thing happens.
Yeah.
I mean, and even from a point of view of like liking him, it's funny because my only Dune knowledge is from the David Lynch Dune, and for just the whole story. And so like in that one, you're rallying behind Kyle. I'm ready to jump on the sandworm with him. And this one kind of made me kind of go in with that same attitude, but I was like, I don't really like this guy. And that turn was felt a lot more, where I was questioning, going like, am I supposed to like him or not like him? And I guess in my head, because of what I know from the Lynch version, I thought, oh, this is weird. But now hearing you guys talk about how that is the direction it is, that definitely sounds like they are trying to draw that all in with Messiah.
That's what's so, wild about me. I guess one thing, we haven't really talked about this, and I guess we've just discussed the like the plot of Dune, but I'm actually curious for everyone, like what is everyone's relationship to Dune? So Brian, you'd only seen the David Lynch version, and you've not read the book?
No, I have no idea what's happening in that land.
Okay, what about you, Paul?
The same with me. I've seen the David Lynch version. I have not read the books.
Okay.
I have like some broad familiarity of what happens in the books, but not much.
I am in the process of reading the first book. I've seen the David Lynch version. Probably most importantly, there's this podcast, LPN Deep Dives Dune, with Henry Zabrowski and Holden McNeely, where they spent like...
I was just watching them a minute ago, ranking deli meats.
Oh, nice. They're ranking deli meats?
They're ranking deli meats.
Oh, yeah. But they did a show that spent, like 12 episodes basically going over the 6 books Frank Herbert wrote and Herbert's life and some of the adaptations, but mostly those 6 books. And so I know them kind of well. I know them like filtered through these guys essentially.
Sure.
Yeah.
For me, I had not seen the Lynch movie, and then when the last Dune came out, I read the book for the first time before the movie. And that was fascinating because, like, as I was reading the book is when it was announced that it was only going to be the first half. And I remember thinking, what are you talking about? Nothing's happened yet. Like, how are you going to, like as dense and as big as the book is, and I have it here, and yeah, it is thick. Like, it is not plot driven. It is, like, I was 100 pages in and somebody asked me what's it about, and I was like, vibes in space, but it's setting up the entire, what I explained to them is it's a fantasy, but instead of like different lands, each land is a planet. And so I was fascinated that, like, when I got to the halfway point, I was like, there's no way they could end it there. That's like, and seeing the movie, like, oh shit, that's exactly, they ended exactly at the halfway point. Seeing Lynch's version is wild because Brian, when we went to go see it together, I'd never seen Lynch's version, so then I saw Dune, and then I saw Lynch's version just for the first time last year at the Arrow on 35, and I loved it. But it was fascinating because, like, most of it is the first movie and like the first half of the book, and then the second, like, I'd say the last 45 minutes of it are this movie.
That's more or less what it is.
Yeah.
I actually did I rewatched it and wrote down like the proportions, and it is it's about 75 to 90 depending. There's some overlap kind of before the David Lynch Dune gets to stuff that is happening in Dune Part 2, and that movie's only 2 hours and 10 minutes long.
Like, structurally, it's interesting because you would think, based on, like, whatever the story is, the overarching story in Dune, that the first movie is like the first act.
Yeah.
Rather than like a halfway point, which is how they were separating it. But I know they had to do more world building, and I guess that's like same in the book, where it's just very complicated, so that you need more in the
I wasn't wild about the first Dune. I liked it. I think the filmmaking is incredible.
Absolutely.
Absolutely incredible. But it did feel like half a movie, and just like it was just getting started, because, like, knowing the full story, I was like, yeah, that was the first act. That was like, okay, everything's set up now. I do believe, like, in a way, what I like about Lynch's version is, like, oh, I would have loved to seen his actual vision, his, like, 4 hour or however long it was version, because, like, the thing about, and now we're getting slight spoilers, but just like, the thing about that version is in what's released, Paul just kind of is Space Jesus. Like,
totally.
There's no, and so they make him the hero, and I'm sure that's a studio quote. So, like, Brian, your whole, like, I don't know if I like this guy. It's like, well, that's on the.
That's
It's
not Paul's the hero story.
Because clearly in the first, you're still riding with him as like, no, this could be the big hero Jesus that we think he is, and obviously, that to me was probably the most effective thing of the second, is just because I was almost like going for the cliches more than anything else, and I was like, that's a turn I didn't expect in that sense.
Lynch's Dune is very much so a post-Star Wars movie in that
totally,
it is trying to take, which, Star Wars itself was influenced by Dune, and so it's things getting like warmed over and flipped back and forth until it creates this thing at the end of the line.
You can tell that the studio wanted a Star Wars, and Lynch was sort of making an old-fashioned epic that, like I say, I wish he could have seen his vision through and made, if it would have been like as faithful as the first half was to the book, which it pretty much is. Like, I would have loved to see what he did with that sort of thing.
It's like I don't know too much of what you were saying. Like Lynch has like a 4 hour not cut, but like
I mean, I don't even know if that actually exists, but like the movie got taken away from him, essentially.
Yeah, because I did not care for the David Lynch Dune very much.
It's I think the idea is that there's like he shot enough to make like almost like a 3 to 4 hour version, but then it got taken away from him
because it was the whole producing thing. Because it was Rafael de Laurentiis was the producer on it. And at the same time they were filming Dune, like they were literally actually sharing a lot of the extras and everything because they were filming Conan the Destroyer at the same time, basically. So a lot of like weird set, interactions were happening. And I know there was also some issue with like they were burning things, like as far as like I think dead animals or all this weird shit that like ended up like getting into people's lungs and stuff on set. Like it was a really bad set. Like it wasn't just Lynch having issues with this, So I know it was definitely his vision got chopped in half for sure.
I really like the Lynch version, but like that was because I had read the book and already seen the first movie. Where like my buddy saw it, he was with us and he couldn't stand it, and I was like, yeah, I guess I like it more for what it's going for than what it necessarily is.
Yeah, I don't know if Lynch's Dune makes sense as like if you're coming into it without anything else and out any other sort of understanding, it doesn't really make any sense, especially once you get into the accelerated second half.
Yeah,
I watched David Lynch's Dune without knowing anything about Dune. I was just a David Lynch fan. And I had no idea what was going on. I mean, some of it was like interesting visually and whatever.
Yeah.
It's David Lynch, but
that's pretty much my takeaway from enjoying it is just that like, I'm a big Lynch fan, so I'm going to watch him swing. And if it was another random filmmaker doing this, I probably wouldn't even give it another thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we get back to Denis Dune, I do think that Lynch's Dune, even at its best version, I don't know if Lynch is the one to do Dune. You know what I mean? Like, I think there is kind of I'm wearing Batman Returns, and I was thinking about how, like, I love Tim Burton's Batman movies, but he's not really a good action director, which is why there's, like, basically no action scenes in Batman Returns.
Yeah. Which is what makes Sleepy Hollow so great, where like I think the action is really amazing in that one.
But I think with Lynch, I think that even at the best version, it still would have been not quite what Lynch was supposed to be doing. These days, when a young hungry filmmaker gets chomped up by a studio, the studio basically is over their shoulder the whole time, making sure they don't make any mistakes. And the only difference now between what it seems to used to be is it used to be they would just let people do whatever, and then at the end they would take control away. And now you just go in knowing you're gonna not really have control.
Yeah,
but it's still kind of the same issue of taking these people who aren't really equipped. And I don't mean experience-wise. I just mean, like, the types of stories they're built to tell,
Yeah.
Certain filmmakers know how to tell big sci-fi epics. I don't know if Lynch is someone I would put on, like, a short list or a long list for, like, oh, this guy's going to make a great sci-fi epic. You know what I mean?
I liked that he got to do one, and I liked the old-fashionedness of it. It seemed like he was trying to make, like, almost like a 1930s like Errol Flynn type adventure with a sci-fi budget is really what I felt this was.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said, I think, and people disagree with me. Like when writing and producing something that is very, very specific to the source material, I think some people were say like you need some sort of separation. So maybe somebody who's not like a super fan of the source material can bring some sort of outsider perspective and sort of make it more accessible to people who aren't as familiar. But I'm of the mind that I think the person who is adapting a source material should be passionate and should be a fan of that source material, because they
Oh, sure.
understand what appeals, what the appeal is to the source material and what it means. And I don't think David Lynch had that sort of appreciation for Dune.
Yeah, I'm curious what David Lynch thinks of Dune.
I honestly, not gonna lie, I think he got it because of Andrzej Jodorowsky's script that was sort of potentially working, and I think coming from like a surrealist filmmaker that way, maybe Lynch was sort of like, I can do that shit too, in a lot of ways, because I know what it sounds like.
Like, I think he wanted to make like cool alien shit, you know, like
totally.
the way that he was like, I don't know what the story is with him in Return of the Jedi, like he was offered in some, you know,
yeah.
I'm sure he would have made it look cool, and trippy and shit, but like, yeah, I agree that like it's not what he was put on this earth to do, but I'm glad he got to do it once.
Yeah, and it gave him the understanding of knowing he needs Final Cut. This was the film that made him realize that, like, I will always have Final Cut.
And,
I would guess.
Hold on.
Would be. Oh yeah.
And my voice is low, so you gotta give me room to talk. And he met Kyle on it.
And he met Kyle. Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I was saying. What was I saying?
Well, I will say what you were saying. Denis Villeneuve, he is a big fan, and he apparently like storyboarded the books when he was a kid. He would like make little drawings about how he wanted to film them. But I would also say that I think he probably has made more. David Lynch's Dune also makes some pretty weird changes, but a lot of it's more for just because of how compressed it has to be. Denis makes more explicit changes that are there seemingly to emphasize theme and things like that. So weirdly, I think Denis is probably less faithful in certain ways.
In certain parts, definitely.
But like,
I did read that in passing. There was a lot of his own interpretation, which is kind of interesting.
It's weird. I think sometimes people who understand the source material the most are the ones who are best equipped to change it.
Yeah,
because they
for sure,
that's probably true. Yeah.
Of it and the appeal, whereas somebody who doesn't really get it is just like, oh, I'm gonna. This is. Sorry, I have a Chipotle coming. They're the ones who are just going to be like, okay, this is the skeleton to the movie that we're making.
Right.
That's what we have to do.
To bring it back to Denis, I love these movies. I mean, I really liked the first one a lot, and it grew as the last couple of years have passed. Like, it grew how much I liked it whenever I would revisit it. I think this is this decade's or generation's like Lord of the Rings is like the thing that I would compare it the most to. It is this epic of literature or genre literature whose influence is inescapable. Lord of the Rings' influence on fantasy is you can't escape it. And I would say, especially now knowing more and more about Dune and the story, like, its influence on science fiction is pretty inescapable, it feels like. And this is an adaptation done at the highest level imaginable by an auteur who is able to bend and fuse the material into something their own while still keeping it thematically like aligned with the source material. Obviously, the tone is very different. And themes.
But Lord of the Rings, funnily enough, that's the most I picked up. I know Star Wars gets the big first one, and there's definitely a lot of, it's more of the visual aspect, I think, that gives me the Star Wars vibe, but like the actual structure.
They're both in space.
Yeah, they're both. It's like those little subtle differences. But then the way the world felt, the fantasy lean in is so much more Lord of the Rings than not, for sure.
And these aren't going to be movies in the future, like in 10 years. Someone who's a fan of these movies will maybe watch individual ones by themselves. But my hand got raised. But I think most people in the future, when they watch these movies, are going to be watching, like, all of them. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to just, like, I'm just going to watch Dune Part 1 and not watch the others.
Right.
Yeah, like when I've watched the Lord of the Rings movies countless times, but I always watch them in sequential order
Hmm.
by one
Which is
until
also why I've always sort of seen Fellowship more than any of the other
Yeah.
ones, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't have time for this right now.
Yeah.
I agree. Sometimes I just start with Fellowship with a plan of watching the whole, like all of them together. But I was also I would watch them. I had the big DVD box sets of the extended edition,
Oh yeah.
Mm.
and I would watch them at night going to bed, and so
We all got to watch them at midnight on a big screen that nobody realized was going to be the longest fucking version ever.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
Yeah, when I rewatched the first of Denny's Dunes this last week, and the last time this happened to me was during the pandemic, during the big oneer towards the end, the fake oneer towards the end of the Adventures of Tintin, where I got emotional, not because of what was happening, but through the power of cinema. Like, the power of cinema and art. It was specifically when the Atreides were, like, landing on Arrakis for the first time. I remember getting, like, emotional, just like, man, movies are good.
yeah.
I like movies so much.
Totally, yeah.
Let's go to spoilers for a little bit, because there's a couple of, like, more specific things I want to talk about. Putting spoilers up on the screen. The first one's just a joke. I think my favorite bit out of this has been the way people have been doing jokes about Javier Bardem's Stilgar and how much he is how much he's convinced that Paul is their savior. I wrote down only the Lisan Al Gaib could eat a whole spoon of cinnamon without coughing. I started thinking of those like bits, like only the Lisan Al Gaib could dump that many buckets of ice water on their head and still be able to run around like that.
I think he was my favorite character.
He was
just
yeah.
The way the emotion and like he's one of those that it's because of him that it was able to come across as like deadpan serious while also juxtaposed with like really amazing levity and humor that would go off and it would totally feel weird with somebody else, but I loved it. And I also loved, just the little nods of how that, don't believe in this, don't believe in this. And it was like the mockery of almost like laughing at themselves, like, oh, we're into this. And they secretly were together being like, he is the one.
Yeah.
Right? It was fun the way he really played a big part in that the welcoming of that world. And he almost like represented that other world so well for me.
That might be
he is the only source of levity.
Yeah.
He had to do a lot of heavy lifting.
I got some levity rewatching it in the second half when the other Harkonnens were kind of making fun of Dave Bautista, but that was sort of its own thing where they're like, you fuck up. Like the next time you embarrass our family, you're gonna die. And then he says something when they meet with the Emperor, and Fade and the Baron both give him a look like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Austin Butler certainly came in and just like put him to shame very quickly. And a guy, you think of a beast like David Bautista, and you haven't really seen him being able to get shunned down and feel so tiny. And Austin Butler definitely made that happen.
Yeah. I love all the big set pieces in this one, especially compared to the first one.
Amazing.
Which is, the first one's great. I love the first one, but there's not a whole lot of action, especially in the first. There's like none in the first half. And then even in the second half, it's like more slower.
Yeah.
And in this one, it starts off almost immediately. Like the second scene is that Harkonnen patrol trying to capture the Fremen, and they beat them up. And there's obviously the Harvester attacks. There's all the stuff in the end, riding the worm. Fade's fight on Giedi Prime, which is great. I love the way they shot that. People who haven't seen it, when they go to the Harkonnens' homeworld, they have like a black sun, and the way they shot it is using these infrared black and white cameras. And so whenever they get out into the light, everything becomes like black and white, like the sun, the shade of the sun is sort of removing all the colors. That's really cool looking.
Especially the fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the set pieces, man, it's honestly watching something this grandiose makes you kind of also realize with the, I know we all have our mixed opinions, but I think overall we're all here on the same page that we do enjoy the Marvel movies. But you do see where like these massive set pieces, they make a lot of fucking difference,
It puts those movies to shame in a way.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
A lot of shit because I enjoy them, but like,
yeah.
When you see something like this, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, like they spend much more money and just, but they don't have the time.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
And with all due respect to the Marvel movies, I think it's different movie by movie.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times the set pieces are almost like their own individual identity with the studio.
Yeah.
Sure.
Where they have their own machine creating these. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was talking about earlier, about how we're taking these filmmakers who, are known for these smaller things, and they're completely taking away control instead of like giving them a chance to do it, and maybe they would fail.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
No, I mean, it's true. I mean, we've talked about it before with Doctor Strange with Sam Raimi. You can definitely tell when Raimi was able to be free versus when the studio was not letting him be free.
Yeah.
That's very apparent with all these smaller filmmakers that could do so much more. I mean, the Marvels was another prime example of that. Like, the filmmaker's better than the product that it ended up coming up with. I think because of the studio.
I almost wonder if Multiverse of Madness's big issue is just that the script they were still writing when they filmed it, because it felt like
I think you're definitely right. Yeah.
On a
he could have jumped on and been like, "Give me a year to just like nail this down." And then go, but they were out of budget. They were out of timeline, and they had to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were also super hyper focused on the Disney Plus shows and just trying to make this whole magical thing happen. That if they did pump the brakes a bit, it would have been a better product for sure.
That's one.
Which hopefully is what they're realizing now.
With these, the MCU, they have such a giant universe now because of all the product. There's almost a prerequisite just to incorporate all of these different things, and it sometimes might get in the way of the movie. Like, I don't think if we're left to Sam Raimi, he would include like Professor X. I don't know. I mean, not that really matters, but
I mean, you never know. That would be the fun of something like that potentially too. But it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, maybe kill him off. I mean, like especially that scene in particular was very Sam Raimi-esque.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, they probably, I would say, came to Sam Raimi with these stipulations or something.
Sure.
And that's
Absolutely.
like a lot of the Marvel movies. They're just like, you have to do this, this, and this, and sometimes it might get in the way. But I'll be right back.
Things, and speaking of like stuff that's changed and stuff, that wasn't a really good transition, but like we were talking a little bit about how they seem to change. One of the biggest things was they changed Chani, Zendaya's character, from the book.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the book, she's definitely a little bit more, especially towards the end, subservient and acquiesces to what Paul is doing. Where in the movie, and I think this is a big thing that's kind of pulled from Messiah backwards a little bit, and Denny even talked about this in an interview, where it's like he knows where it's going, and so he wants the audience to be from her point of view, that like we know, like, oh, this isn't a good thing, like this holy war that's about to begin at the end, which in David Lynch's Dune is like, he is the Kwisatz Haderach,
Totally, yeah.
Holy
Again, that's
war.
where my confusion kicked in, because I'm a huge Rebecca Ferguson fan, and I loved everything she did in the first one, but to see her, and don't get me wrong, she killed what she did in the second one. But it was such a different take, and I was like, holy shit, it was jarring for me in a strange way, but I get it now in context with talking about what, and that is a better way. It would be kind of dumb to sort of make him the big hero, make the whole thing, and then Messiah comes along the way and just throws it on its head. That would be stupid, but it makes sense with this.
Yeah, I love evil Mommy Ferg. I love the scene.
Oh, she's so great.
She gets turned. That's such a spooky scene. She has to drink a bunch of blue worm cum. and it gives her like the sight to see through like time or whatever, and it's played like a I think she even quoted she wanted to play it like an Exorcist film almost.
Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Like the old grandma, I forget what they're called, but like she basically got all the memories, thoughts, and history of that. It just passes along. So it was a good like possession take the way it happened. So
yeah, like watching it, I wasn't expecting, because I mean I didn't read the books. I wasn't expecting it to change her as much as it did, and it really did change her character. Because even like setting it up, like it almost seems like almost dismissive of the thing, and maybe I guess she didn't even know it would change her that much, or didn't respect it changing that much. But she was like, "Yeah, I guess I don't have much of a choice." And Timothée Chalamet feel like it didn't take it very seriously either.
Yeah.
And then, afterwards, she's become sort of like a crazy person.
I mean, she's
an evil sorcerer.
She's arguably, I mean, she's kind of one of the villains of the movie in a way. Ways. Maybe not.
It's
so
pretty
much
evident with that's the way they're doing it. But yeah. I would say more of like they're going to look like an opportunist more than an antagonist. Just because that's the vibe I feel is like I'm going to do this, and even with the creepy daughter speak, and all that. It was interesting.
He's definitely pushing Paul Atreides to a certain direction and making it so that he sort of has to fulfill this prophecy.
Yeah.
Right. The ego definitely starts to kick in more than anything else, where his like innocence and almost the humbleness that I feel like he possessed that first film just slowly lingers away, and you can definitely feel that obviously right toward the end, where it's like, this dude's probably going to be a maniac in any moment now.
Yeah.
See, even I felt like there was it was complicated. I felt like in a lot of times he was like putting on an act, like he has to play this character of the prophet, the Messiah. But then at a certain point he comes to believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What point are you putting the act on just to get everybody involved? Because I think they even mentioned that
we don't have access to his mind, and we don't know. Like at what point does he really sort of,
well, even
his power,
even the ending, because it ends with, he has sort of claimed the throne of the emperor. He's claimed the hand of Princess Erlon. And the other great houses aren't recognizing his ascendancy. And it ends with him kind of regretfully saying to Javier Bardem and Stilgar, like, show them the way to paradise, in a way where it's like, he's not saying it flippantly like I just said it, because that's the way I read things. But he's saying it more with like with a seriousness, because I think he still, even at the end, understands the kind of negative things that are going to come from this.
Also, I think the moment for me that like made it seem like, oh, he's believing in his own bullshit was when he accepted the duel with what's his name, the Sting character.
Fade.
Austin Butler's character.
Elvis?
Yeah.
Elvis, because there is no real reason for him to take that risk. And I think it was Stilgar says, it's like, why is he taking these risks? There really isn't any reason.
Yeah.
Like he could ascend to that point,
I think it was Josh Brolin. It was Josh Brolin's like, hey, let me do it.
It seems like Josh, like, that would fit his character more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Stilgar was into it. Because he's like, of course he's going to be the one to battle because he's the Mahdi.
Yeah. But
like obviously, like Paul doesn't know like how good of a fighter this guy is, but he just believes in himself and has this ego that he is almost like he has the plot armor, that he can't fail. And and yeah, I think that was a good place to sort of leave the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I think you sort of got a sense of where his character's at and where he's going. Whereas the next movie, if it'll ever happen, it'll probably be down the line.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine.
I imagine, considering this one's doing pretty well, so and just like it would look bad for Warner Brothers if they're like, "Yeah, we're done."
Yeah.
Like, they want to project success, so it hasn't been announced, but like I think he's worked on it, so I don't think it's been officially greenlit. But I would imagine that we're going to get it within like 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, Denny.
It's like I don't know much about the book. There's like a time jump, right?
Yeah, there is. There's like a 15-year time jump, I think. But I know Denny apparently. Hans Zimmer said recently Denny like gifted him a copy of Dune Messiah. So
Okay,
who
yeah,
knows what that means.
he wants to do it. He really, yeah, he wants to make it a trilogy. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'd be shocked if we don't get that.
Yeah.
Within,
I think especially the way it ends too. I mean, there's not a completion feel with this
No,
part
not
two.
really. It feels not in a bad way. It feels like intended, like the way Lord of the Rings is, or something. Where
Even like Empire Strikes Back. You're like, cool, this is a dope shit, but I need that third, the wrap up, and hopefully, whatever the third is will not be Return of the Jedi style. But
yeah, but it's clearly being designed in a way where it's designed towards that third one being the conclusion of the story.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about Star Wars. To me, there's two really big Star Wars things that I was thinking about during this. One is I feel like maybe Gurney Halleck is kind of a basis for Han Solo, Josh Brolin's character, a little bit. He's a smuggler. He's kind of a friend.
Yeah, that's actually a good call. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
The like young hero, and then the most obvious one I think is the reveal that Baron Harkonnen, which is this movie's Darth Vader in a way, is Paul's grandfather as opposed to father, but still. I thought that stuff was interesting, and I think it's also interesting that Google autocorrect knows all these fake words. So apparently, the Google people are a bunch of fucking nerds because every time I type in like Benny Gesserit, it knows.
Oh, that makes pretty.
Yeah.
That tracks.
They probably just created an AI just for Dune.
Yeah.
Like, we're just gonna focus on this, guys.
They probably had that like in the first version of Google.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
But I loved this movie, and I'm super excited. Let's
make me want to read the books.
Do we want to talk about the future of Dune?
You want to read Dune Messiah to see where things go.
I'm gonna change my background briefly and take off the spoilers, unless people have specific things to say about Dune Part 2.
Actually, I do want to say one thing that is somewhat spoilery.
Okay, go ahead.
Just for my, I saw it at the Vista. It was a sold-out crowd. It was a lot of fun. When Paul says, "I will," to Florence Pugh's character, "I will take your hand."
Yeah.
Some woman in the audience goes, "What?" And everyone just burst out laughing.
Yeah.
That's great.
There's like one of the most liked reviews on Letterboxd of the movie is like, Paul told Zendaya, Timothée told Zendaya that he loves her like 2 seconds before proposing to Florence Pugh. All men do is lie.
But that does remind me, this isn't really spoilers, but the reaction I heard in the cinema was laughter when Christopher Walken was on screen, which I know you think it was a great casting. I'm iffy on like just because I don't know if laughter was the
great casting. Yeah, but people were...
I think my favorite thing actually was Anne's review. Our friend Anne's, like, she name checked the Christopher Walken part about being like, I don't know why he was in there. He didn't do anything, and it was just a funny little bit that she
coming at me like this when my voice is hoarse. I can't believe it. I think what I was saying, Paul, is not that I didn't think he's great casting necessarily, but it kind of reminded me of how Salvador Dali was supposed to be the Emperor in Jodorowsky's Dune. Dali apparently wanted $1 million an hour, so Jodorowsky planned on filming all of his scenes in 1 hour. But I think that like having Walken, who's a guy we haven't really seen a lot lately, especially not in serious stuff, having him be the Emperor, especially with that first scene where he doesn't even say anything, and it's like part of the scene that he doesn't say anything. I think it immediately gives him. You immediately are like, oh, okay. Like you kind of, it's that movie star thing that used to be a reason why people would cast. You know, I mean, it still is now. Where when you put a character or an actor in a certain role, your brain will fill in some of the gaps. And I think Walken being this presence of who he is, like, adds that. I agree that people were laughing at his cadence, the couple of lines. Because to be fair, most of his lines don't have the normal cadence. He avoided it for the most part. But I also, that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, and people laugh at movies from the 80s when people have giant cell phones, like fucking whatever.
You know, I noticed with my crowd, like I heard a few laughs like the first time, but by the end, we just kind of got used to it. And yeah, I do wish he had a little bit more to do, but yeah, I agree. Like his presence was what he was cast for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he is a formidable presence, just sitting and just being there. Like it's interesting. Like he felt like an emperor, you know, like yeah.
He felt like weak. You know, he felt like. I mean, but that seemed intended.
I think it is. It's kind of his character that he's weak. He's weak in a way.
Like,
he has this status, but he also has a very weak control over it, because that's like a big thing with the Bene Gesserit. Like midway through the movie, they're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter what's happening. Your dad," talking to Florence Pugh, "is not going to be the Emperor anymore. Like we don't fucking give a shit about him anymore. He's like a lost cause essentially." But yeah. Let me change my background briefly, just so we.
But he is still in Christopher Walken.
He is indeed.
At this point,
I've got this background to talk a little bit about the future from
cool.
Dunes.
From The Simpsons.
It's multiple Dunes.
Dune, where's
Out of
car?
ideas.
And then
Dune, where's my car?
Yeah. But I'm really excited for Messiah. I agree. It would be really. I mean, it's not like Warner Brothers hasn't made a lot of fucking stupid decisions in the last couple of years. But I'd be pretty surprised if they don't. I'm definitely not interested in like a TV show spinoff, which they've talked about. I don't really care about much about that, because to me, I saw people like complaining about the like pacing of the movie, like they would rather it be a TV show, and I'm like, nah, man. Like seeing it on 70mm IMAX, like that's part of what makes it like cinema and makes it this grand thing. And I love TV, but you know, it's a different thing. I'm really curious if they're going to call it Dune Messiah, or if they're just going to call it Dune Part 3.
I was wondering that too. Yeah, I'll be curious to see that. Yeah.
I'm reading the books finally, or at least the first one. We'll see how many of them I end up actually reading. I know Edwin couldn't make it. He wanted to basically tell you guys he had more elaborate thoughts on this, but I'm summarizing because he's not here, so he can go fuck himself. Which is that he likes the old one better, despite not having seen the new ones. He likes Kyle MacLachlan better as Paul Atreides, and he still hates young twinks like Timothée Chalamet. So,
right.
And I weirdly, just to rattle these off because I have them written down here, there are a couple of things that Lynch's Dune does do that Denis doesn't, like the Spacing Guild. What happens with the Thufir Hawat character, who's basically just written out of this second Dune Part 2.
Yeah. The
Alia, some of the ending. And there are things about that Dune that are genuinely good. You know, I like the weirdness of it, some of the sex stuff. I like the pugs. I like when Patrick Stewart comes back. like the sleeper is awakened thing. But and I like that. Besides McLaughlin, he also picked up Alicia Witt, who would play one of the Hayward sisters in Twin Peaks. She's little baby Alia in Dune. She's one of the sisters. She's the one who was also in The Return, and she's like a drug addict in the future. And then Jose Ferrer is the Emperor. Miguel Ferrer's dad is the Emperor in David Lynch's Dune, which I don't know if that's how they met, but yeah, I'm excited about Dune. I'm fully Dune pilled, as the kids would say. I'm ready to get duned and be thoroughly duned all the time.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Denis Villeneuve. I watched Blade Runner.
Oh, I saw you today. That's such a.
That one is just so incredible. Like, just filmmaking on that one too. Like, yeah, I mean, I know he is a big name, but I feel like he should be a bigger name, and maybe this is what'll finally do it for him.
Yes.
But like, it does feel like I wanted to make the joke in my Letterboxd review of like, he feels like he's the Christopher Nolan of our time right now. Like, it just.
Well, that's the thing. It's almost like the Nolan, James Cameron. You think of these big names. He's in that company. It just doesn't feel quite right yet. But I think this absolutely will.
This is it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I saw someone online talking about how studios are scrambling to try to find the post-Marvel blockbuster template, and we'll see what that means. I doubt it's going to mean giving interesting auteurs creative control, which is what it should mean.
That's for sure not going to happen.
It's going to be something
That's the lesson we've taken from this.
It's going to be like all blockbusters are just going to be like super Muslim-y, I guess, in like 10 years. I don't know. It's going to be something like that. It's going to be like the completely wrong lessons to learn from.
They watch sci-fi books.
Yeah. Let me change my background. And
how well did the film do in box office? I imagine it did well, but
it's doing very well. It's already gotten back its pretty big budget, and it's not even out for a full week yet. And I don't know what its international release is yet. So that feels pretty good to me.
I made a stupid amount of money that Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday night.
Yeah, I would imagine just between there not being much out, that it's going to have long legs. I will, and I'm not even joking about this, I will be curious to see how it does against Kung Fu Panda, just because there's not a lot of family movies out right now. So I suspect that one's going to be pretty big.
I think it'll be big.
But I also, but like after that, there's not much else,
till Ghostbusters
coming out.
Probably Ghostbusters is the next big one.
That's not until the end
families.
of March.
Yeah.
Yep.
But still, I imagine it's going to be sticking around and making a lot of money.
Sure.
But yeah, now that we've,
I mean, especially if you're striking Prince, that's got to be money that you're got to get back alone.
Yeah.
And they're doing a lot of 70mm prints. There's one at the one at my old theater in Milwaukee that I always used to go to.
Oh, yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
And I actually have not seen it on IMAX yet. I'm seeing it next Wednesday, a week from today on IMAX. Looking forward to that. The 70mm was great, but when I was watching, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be really, really beautiful on 70mm."
Yeah, some of those scenes. I mean, it's pretty loud at the Vista, but at IMAX, it was just like
this was one of the loudest I've ever heard a mixed sound in that place for sure. In that room.
Well, I think it's time for Connor's Wicked Game, sponsored by Chris Isaac. Every week, like Jigsaw, I like to play a little game. This week, 2 dunes and a line. I'm going to read...
Jesus. I'm going to fail this game so terribly bad. 3
names or phrases or terms. 2 are from the world of Frank Herbert's Dune. The other is not. You get 2 points if you can tell me which one isn't from Dune, and for an additional point if you can tell me what that thing is actually from. There are 2 catches. One, some of these, the thing that it's from is my brain. It's just something I made up. It's not from like Star Trek or DC. It's just some bullshit that I thought up.
Wild
And,
cards.
Yeah.
Also, a couple of these are oops, all Dunes, and it's all 3 are Dune terms.
Okay.
I won't be able to tell a Floople versus whatever else you're saying, so do it to it. I'm gonna just collect my bronze right now, actually.
Scott, you've read some of the books, so you probably
Only
have.
the first one, honestly.
All right, we'll start with you, Scott. We'll
Okay.
everyone will get a chance to answer. Scott, well, everybody, but then Scott will answer first. Which of these is not from Dune? A, The Weirding Way, B, Pranabindu, or C, Spidey Sense?
I'm gonna have to go with Spidey Sense on.
And where do you
I
think?
still really, 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 really wanted a Tom Holland cameo in it, just to grab Zendaya. That would have been just great, but whatever. Yeah, Spidey Sense.
I will also go with Spidey Sense, and for the extra point, I will say it's from Spider-Man.
Yeah, does everyone else? Anyone else have guesses on where it's from?
I'm also feeling pretty good about Spider-Man. That I'd have to wait.
Yeah, that seems fitting.
You guys are all correct. 3 points for
Yay!
everybody. Spidey Sense is indeed from Spider-Man. I tried to pair these terms up by like type, so those are like abilities and stuff. The Weirding Way and Pranabindu. Next up, Paul. You're gonna start with this one. A, Lisan Al Gaib. B, Elisar. C, Kwisatz Haderach.
It's what was the second one? I know it's the second one.
Elisar.
Yeah.
Elisar?
And where do you think that's from?
That's the thing. I don't know. Sounds very familiar.
Pass.
Pass.
Brian?
I'm gonna say the second one, but Star Wars.
Scott?
I will say Alisar, and is that from Lord of the Rings?
Ding, ding, ding. It is indeed
Yeah.
from Lord of the Rings. That's the name Aragorn takes when he becomes king.
Yeah.
Brian. A, Still Suit. B, The Eyes of Abad. C, The Water of Life.
B. What is it? What is the name again? What's the term for B?
The Eyes of Abad or Abad. I'm not sure.
I don't know where it's from. Some fantasy shit.
Scott?
The Eyes of Abad. I'm gonna say it's one of your brain ones.
Okay. And Paul?
I'll also say Eyes of Abad. I have no idea.
You're all wrong. That's oops, all Dunes.
Oh shit.
That's what they call the blue eyes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Got it.
Oops, all things.
Yep. Scott. A, Durmstrang Institute. B, Genaz Swordmasters. Or C, Suck School.
Hell yeah.
I guess Suck School.
Yeah.
But I don't know what Suck School is from.
Paul?
What were the first two?
Durmstrang Institute and Genaz Swordmasters.
I will say the first one.
Durmstrang. And where do you think it's from?
Dude.
Any guess?
Oh, where's it from? Oh, I don't know.
Brian?
I mean, I want to say Suck School, but Dune's pretty fucking weird, and I wouldn't be surprised. But we'll Suck School, and I'm gonna say it's from Connor's fantasy brain.
Paul is right. Durmstrang Institute is the name of the like the masculine school as opposed to the French school that joins the thing in the fourth Harry Potter and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
the Russian one.
The Suck School is where the Mentats are trained.
I figured it was some weird shit.
In the back
Yeah.
of my brain, I was thinking Harry Potter,
Yeah.
but
I think this next one starts with. I think this next one starts with Paul, but he ran off.
Sorry, I'm here.
That's what Pauls do. They just go chase their adventures, you know. Paul's today is Chipotle.
A, carryall. B, ornithopter. C, spinner.
What was the first one?
Carryall.
Oh. I'm going to guess carryall.
Brian?
Let's say they're all dunes.
Scott?
Can I hear them again?
Carryall, ornithopter, and spinner.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Oops All Dune.
No one got this one right. Spinner is what they call the cars in Blade Runner.
Oh shit! I thought that was what those helicopters things were in this one.
That's ornithopter.
What the fuck are those called? No, I'm sorry.
That's why in my parody of Lenny Kravitz Fly Away, I replaced Dragonfly with ornithopter.
Fuck, and I didn't even pick up on that.
Brian.
Yeah.
CH A, CH Tabir, B, Gaiety Prime, or C, Seleucus Agendus?
Oh Christ! They're all dunes. I don't know.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm also gonna say all dunes. That's my new go-to guess.
Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, but can you repeat those again? Because they all seem like nonsense.
That's
Yeah, that either one that could be. That's the thing. That's the problem with this one.
CH Tabir, Gaiety Prime, or Seleucus Agendus?
I will go with the third one.
Should have joined the others two. That's Oops All Dunes. CH is where the
yeah.
Fremen live. Gaiety is the Harkonnen homeworld, and Seleucus Agendus is the prison planet where the Imperial troops train. Back to you, Scott. A, synthetics. B, mentats, or C, face dancers.
I'll go see Face Dancers, but I don't know what's from.
Paul?
I would say synthetics, and I will guess Fallout.
Brian?
What was the third one? I forget what you said it was. What's
Face
it called?
dancers.
Yeah, I'm gonna say face dancers, and I think it comes from your brain.
Paul? It's not from Fallout, but synthetics are what they call the robots in Alien, in the Alien universe.
Mm-hmm.
What's Fallout 2? So whatever.
Do they?
It's so hard to place these out of context because you're just like, I'm drowned in Dune.
Yeah.
Fallout had synths.
Next one.
I feel like I should get credit.
Okay, I'll give you half a point.
Half a point's fine.
Who started that one? Paul, Scott, I think.
Me.
Yeah. Paul. A, Mahdi. B, Rundabi Kamaken. Or C, Hot the Fish Monster. Hot is spelled like the way a teen girl on MySpace would spell it.
HAUT.
I feel like Hot the Fish Monster is too obvious. So I'm going with the second one. What's the second one again?
Rundabi
What
Kamaken.
is it?
Rundabi Kamaken.
See, that just sounds so Dune-ish, but I'm pretty sure the first one is Dune.
Where do you think that's from, though?
I don't know. It sounds like an anime.
Brian?
They're all dunes.
Scott?
I'm gonna go with Hot the Fish Monster, and I'll say it's from your brain.
You are right that the fake one here is from my brain, but Paul was right about which one it was. It is indeed Rundabi Kamaken. Hot the Fish Monster is a name given to Alia, the kid Anya Taylor-Joy is playing. I don't know why, but apparently she gets that name.
It looks like a fish.
By the way, as soon as I heard she had a cameo in this, I was like, "Well, there's no way she's playing anything else but that."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think even the cast, because they didn't even know, obviously, but they're probably the same thought
I
process,
feel
obviously.
like if they had announced the casting of this movie at the beginning, it said Anna Taylor-Joy, but like, yeah, she's gonna, like.
Yeah.
Hey, all I know is I just thought about Furiosa the whole time watching Dune. So I want my Anya Taylor-Joy.
Brian, well, think about these three terms: A. Drukhari, B. Fadakin, or C. Sardaukar.
I want to say C, just so I don't think my brain's heard that, but I'm sure I'll be wrong. I don't know where it's from.
Scott?
I'm gonna say Uppsala Doom.
Paul?
I know it's not C. What were the first two again?
Drukhari and Fadakin. Fadakin? I'm not sure.
See, Drukhari sounds very familiar. I'm gonna go with, but like not from Dune, so I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna say it's Game of Thrones.
You are right that is not from Dune. It is from Warhammer.
What is Warhammer? I don't even know what that is.
It's a it's a thing that Henry Cavill's making a show about.
Oh, okay.
It'll be the new Dune in 10 years.
Nice.
Warhammer's like it's like a tabletop game where you spend a whole bunch of money and get these like fancy miniatures and paint them and go bankrupt.
Oh, okay.
Scott.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
How about these terms? A. Balisette, B. Chris Knife, or C. Hypnobong?
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know where it's from.
Paul?
What was the second one?
Chris Knife.
And Hypnobong?
Mm-hmm.
Because the second and the third are so ridiculous, I'm going with the first one.
Balisette.
But that sounds so familiar too, but I'm still going with it.
Brian?
I know the second one is that knife thing. I'm going to say the third one, and it's from Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
No, the Hypnobong is indeed from Dune. It is a thing they use to get high, apparently. And
yeah,
the
they all were
Balisette,
definitely hitting
Exactly
the
what it
Hypnobong
sounds
through
like.
this whole thing. Yeah, exactly. The fucking... Ugh.
and the Balisette
Wait,
is the little guitar that Josh Brolin is playing. That was a Oops All Dunes.
Oh.
What was it all doing? Oops, all doing.
Paul, how about A, Canley, B, the Butlerian Jihad, or C, the Balith Civil War?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with the Balith Civil War. I don't know what it's from,
Brian?
but
They're all dunes. I don't know.
Scott?
I'm also going with the Boss Civil War.
That is correct. Balith Civil War is from Star Wars. Canley is like a relationship that the Harkonnens and Atreides have, and the Butlerian Jihad is when the Terminator happened, like 6,000 years before the events of Dune.
Right.
I just
Sean Potter to get back to that one.
it actually uses the word jihad,
Yeah.
which is kind of
That's what threw me off a little bit.
Brian, A, Talaxu, B, Sontarans, or C, Golas?
They're all dunes. I'm just sticking with that, I think.
Scott?
I will also go all Dooms.
Paul?
what were the second and third?
Sontarans and Golas.
Golas?
Yeah.
I'll go with the second one.
Sontarans?
Yeah.
You would be correct. That's from Doctor Who.
Okay.
The and for our last question, Scott, A, Toggild, A, Toggild houses, B, Chome, or C, Landsrad?
Can you hear me again?
Toggild houses, Chome, and Landsrad.
I'll go Oops, I'll Do. Can go out strong.
Paul?
You know what? I'll go Oops, I'll Dune as well.
Brian?
I'm gonna go with Scott just because he's got the most literature knowledge of this. But yeah, I'm still going with that. You still have more than all of it. I think other than Connor, you're the most. So I'm gonna stick with you.
No, it's the Toggled houses, which are from my brain. That's some bullshit that I made up.
That brain of yours there. I mean, it could have been a lot of if you said that's Game of Thrones, I would have believed that too. So
Brian, the bronze, as you predicted, as you foresaw, is Lisa and
I knew that shit. I did.
Scott, silver. Paul ran away with it.
Oh,
my goodness.
Paul has more points than either of the two of you combined.
Damn.
I'm good at recognizing bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your name is Paul, so you do deserve to, I guess, win this one.
He's the chosen one.
Yeah, you are the chosen one. Just don't get that to your head a little bit too much, though.
He is the Kwisatz Haderach. Well, anything else? I think we should get a motherfucking ceasefire up in here, and I'm not gonna shout out anything else because my voice is going, and I just want to do the outro. But you guys got anything else you want to shout out?
Yeah, I just want to say real quick. Love Lies Bleeding opens up in New York and LA this weekend, and everywhere else on the 15th. Go see it. I've seen it twice already. It's fucking dope. And yeah, I can't wait to actually talk about this on the podcast, and I'll have a lot more than. This was my Dune, is what I said to Connor the night we did that. And I was very excited, and I love everything about it. So see it if you can.
Definitely.
Cool.
Follow me on Twitch. I'm a Twitch streamer.
You are.
On Pimp TV.
But yeah, I just want to say next week we're doing the Oskies. Follow us, CinemaCurse666, on TikTok and Instagram. Share this with your local jihadist. If you know anyone who's trying to commit any sort of acts of holy war, show this episode to them. Just see what they think. I want to thank
all
Brian.
good things, I'm sure.
I want to thank Brian here for composing our outro. And yeah, next Twin Peaks Club, end of April, or end of March, early April, episodes 8 through 11. And thank you guys for joining, and thanks whoever's watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.